where are we now? Now that we've got, this compelling data, the FDA is forecasted to legalize MDMA at some point in 2024. We're going to need a lot of therapists and a lot of clinics available. So where does one begin and how does that scale up over the next year? Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Psychedelic Exclusive. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Coming off a great week last week, we had MAPS' data, plus the big news pertaining to Steve Cohen's Point 72 firm investing as much as 18.95 million shares in Cybin, which we've discussed already, as we're going to start to look at the overall infrastructure. And what I mean by infrastructure is the real estate model. We had Cody Chandra on last week from Healing CREI, and now we welcome in one of his board members, Joe Caltabiano. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
Great to see you, Shad. Thanks. And I'm excited to talk to you and Anthony today. And things are great, man. Really enjoying what we're doing with the Healing CREI. And thanks for having me on today.
Always on location. Last time we saw you in Denver. Where are you? New York, Chicago? Where are you?
I'm in New York today. Yeah. So in the big city, taking it all in. Always enjoy being in New York. I feel like my heart pumps a little faster. The blood flows a little better. And you got a little more pep in your step here. And the city's alive. It's great to see the city back in action. I think it's good for the world when New York is spinning.
100%. Anthony and I were actually there last month, pleasantly surprised just how clean it was. And yeah, you're right. A lot of foot traffic on the city again, which is great considering what that city went through over the last couple of years pertaining to COVID. But, I want to start, clearly like there's a lot of people already know the news from last week regarding MAPS and the data that was obviously released. And now it's like, okay, what's next? So when I look at what you guys are building, it's basically infrastructure for the mental health treatment when it comes to clinics across the country. So where are we now? Now that we've got, this compelling data, the FDA is forecasted to legalize MDMA at some point in 2024. We're going to need a lot of therapists and a lot of clinics available. So where does one begin and how does that scale up over the next year?
Sure. From our side, we look at any nascent industry needs capital. There's no industry that gets developed, whether you look back at the early days of Google or anything, Uber, anything. These industries need a significant amount of capital when you're kind of revolutionizing something. And I think this is going to revolutionize mental health. So our focus is bringing the capital in to build out the infrastructure where clinicians can go, where they can treat their patients, because these aren't like dentist's office, right? You need more space. You need more room for these people to go through these treatments. These are long duration treatments. The MDMA treatments could be upwards of 6 hours. So you're spending time in a room with a therapist. No one wants someone right on top of them. So these infrastructures don't really exist. There's not space for this type of treatment. And we're going to go out and build it for them and provide this infrastructure for the clinicians to be able to treat patients in a safe, clean, welcoming environment where, there's nothing more important than your health. And then when you really look at it, your mental health. So we want them to have environments that they feel comfortable in because they're going to be sharing things and really trying to uncover trauma maybe that have experienced. The last thing you want is them in a environment that isn't suited for that level of treatment.
You mentioned 3 months ago, sorry, I just want to say, I'll add one thing real quick. 3 months ago when we were in Denver, you said the first money that comes into cannabis was real estate. And you think the same thing will apply towards this space. Do you want to refresh us on what you meant by that to give people a better understanding as to how we roll this out?
Sure. So, the treatment that we're talking about, whether it's ketamine, whether it's MDMA, and hopefully in the future psilocybin, these aren't going to be medicines that you pick up at your pharmacy. These are going to be administered by a clinician, whether a therapist of some sort, a psychiatrist, and you're going to engage in talk therapy through this process of medicating. That isn't done in your own home, right? Most of this treatment will be done in a clinic. So for that to happen, these clinicians who are coming from, they may work at a hospital now, they may work at another clinic, but they're getting specially trained in these drugs. They're getting specially trained in these therapies. And they don't have the time typically to go out and find real estate. They don't have the time to go out and deal with contractors. They don't have the time to go out and do the baselines of business. And quite frankly, it's not their day-to-day job. So we're going to take that from them. We're going to provide them that infrastructure where they can focus on treating patients. They don't need to go out and raise the level of capital that you need when you take over a 4, 5, 6,000 square foot building. You got to put a half a million or $1 million into the TI or the tenant
Yeah.
improvements. We don't care what color couches they have in there. It's not about we're not totally creating a McDonald's here where it's the same clinic everywhere. We care that it's a safe, welcoming, functional environment for them to
Yep.
have the space that they want to treat these patients. And they can put the leather couch in there. They can decorate it. It's not our brand, it's their brand. But we want to make sure that they have the baseline needs to provide this therapy. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to take so long for these clinicians to find real estate and go through all that process, whereas we can take that off of them and they can focus on getting patients, understanding the therapies, and delivering the medicine that's needed.
How's the demand? I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but I mean, yeah, how's the demand around the product and the demand for these clinics in the, I mean, current environment? Like, are these retrofits, or are you doing like ground up construction, or is it kind of on a case by case basis?
Fortunately for us, commercial real estate's beat up a little bit right now. I think we all know that,
Yeah,
right? Less people are in places. You're ordering
Yeah.
online more. You're not working in the office. So commercial real estate for us, we're buying right, right? We feel like this is a great opportunity to enter the commercial real estate market. There is a huge demand of clinicians. There's a huge demand on the patient side, and that's before really the mainstream media has gotten this information out there. So we expect a
yeah,
huge multiple of where we sit today. But even today, we're having trouble keeping up with the demand and the requests that we're getting just on the inbound side. Myself and Cody and Dan and Ty and the rest of the team, we have huge networks and we haven't been going
Yeah.
out. There hasn't been external communication for us to go out to
yeah.
these clinicians. It's all inbound. So as we sort through these first few deals,
Yeah.
the next step is for us to go out and work our networks to bring them in. And then hopefully you find really good operators that can scale, right? That want to have more than one clinic, that want to really engage in this business, in this industry. And we can provide them that fuel to do so while they focus on treating people, getting patients. We focus on getting the real estate, developing it out for them and their needs. And, for us is on the investment side, it's collecting a rent, it's collecting a coupon.
Now, can you actually own one of these clinics from a business perspective if you're not a clinician? Like if you're just an entrepreneur that wants to go in and develop the properties, bring in your own staff, et cetera, or do you need to be a clinician to actually own and operate one of these
So, in
businesses?
general, in the US, and again, it's a little bit out of my depth, but there are laws relating to collecting revenue as it relates to medical treatment that you need to be a doctor.
Yeah,
Now, there are
Gotcha. Okay.
structures in place. There are a multitude of public Aspen Dental, or there's places that have built
yeah,
business models that work through that. But in general, if you're providing medical treatment, you have to be a clinician of some sort. There are structures, and again, it's typically through the real estate side where you can own the real estate asset and you're not owning the
yeah,
operating business. You're just a landlord. But they have, lawyers have developed things called like the friendly PC model that does structure investment into
yeah,
those businesses. That's not our focus. It's not our focus right now. We want the clinicians to
hmm
come in and operate their business and generate the revenue from that and worry about the insurance billing and all of the multitude of things that just go into running a business. For us, it's more about building out the real estate, building out places that they can utilize, and then having that expand over time as more and more treatments become available.
Right. What have we learned about the ketamine clinic model? A lot of clinics not profitable, but how do we avoid that mistake to make sure that the proper necessary steps are done the correct way in order for this to scale up and meet the demand that's going to be required over the next coming years?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. The doctors need to get educated, right? A lot of times
Yeah.
there's billing, right? Just the billing process
yeah,
between the doctor and the insurance companies is critically important. So, doctors are my sister's a nurse. I'm around a ton of doctors. They typically are very focused on their profession and they don't know a lot of the external things around it, right? They don't
Yeah.
understand the billing aspect. So, for me it's if I were to be a physician or a doctor or a clinician, I would have a strong ops manager who understands the billing structures and they put things in place to run the business side and then they can focus on the treatment side. So I think like anything, you need to have a good team around you. You need to have
Yeah.
people who are experts in respective fields. You need to get out and be a marketer, right? There you have to get out and educate
yeah.
And with medicine, it's less marketing and it's more education, but
Yeah,
informing
100%.
people about the trials that are happening, informing people about the success that you're seeing. And unfortunately, it's not a one size fits all. So, there is some level of making sure that you're educating the populace on these new opportunities for them to get well. And unfortunately, mental health is a big problem that not everybody talks about. So not only
Yeah,
do you have to educate them on something as important as this, but a lot of people don't have their ears open to that, right? They need to understand that these
yeah,
opportunities are available for them.
Yeah, a lot of our audience is obviously familiar with the REIT model from a sale leaseback perspective that
Sure.
we've seen in like the cannabis space. Is that what you guys are doing structurally, sale leasebacks, or is
Yeah,
it a
most of it's
different
gonna
different
most of it's gonna
model
be
to the
sale
REIT?
leaseback. The To get into the market quickly, it's going to be convert existing real estate. We're not opposed to new
Okay.
construction, and there will be some portion of that, but I would say that's kind of phase two. For us, it's really going out and finding existing buildings or existing operators that they want to scale up. Well, the way I look at it is there's two type of doctors and therapists that we're looking for. One is someone who's been around for a while. They're starting to
yep.
develop their exit plan, right? They've owned their practice for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. They're thinking about bringing their kid in. They're thinking about bringing a partner on, but they have all this money locked up in the real estate. So we
Yeah.
create the succession plan for them where they can take some cash off the table. They're now paying a rent. It factors into their business. They can then bring on a partner, their son, their daughter, whomever, to then share in the upside of the business. So that's one opportunity. The other opportunity is the person who really wants to scale this up, right? They may own one or two clinics right now. They've got a few $1 million locked up in some real estate, but they want to open 5 more clinics. They want to open 10 more clinics. We can come in,
Yeah.
buy the real estate from them, give them a rental payment. Then they can go out and invest that money into their operating business. And then they can
Ah,
go up and simultaneously we will go out and buy more real estate for them, assuming they run a profitable business. They understand all of the
Yeah.
economics. They,
There's a lot
they
of
you know,
assumptions.
they're
Yeah.
actually professionals, not on the clinical side, but on the business side, that they run a
right.
good business. But we can then give them this fuel to go out. For us, I don't want to work with 1,000 doctors. I want to work with 10, right? The ideal scenario
Okay.
is 10 of these doctors want to own 100 clinics each around their respective state or the region. Now, that's unrealistic. It's probably going to fall in between the two. But for us, if
Yeah.
we can find good operators and put capital behind them that they can grow their respective brands, that's the ultimate win for us. And then we
Do you
understand them.
I was gonna say, do you find with some of the way you're kind of outlining, explaining the target audience you're going for based on the demand is like what Anthony asked. Are you finding you're having conversations with a lot of people that fit that criteria?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There are a significant amount that are already operating in some form or another. We've seen a huge uptick in ketamine clinics over the last couple of years. We're going to continue to see that. Now, again, a lot of them are independent business owners. They try to maximize tax benefits. They try to, nobody wants to pay Uncle Sam, right? That's the moral of the story, especially as a
Yeah.
independent operator. And there's a lot of startup costs putting together some of these clinics. And the last few years obviously have been different, right? You had COVID, you had a lot of virtual treatments, you had a lot of different things that have thrown wrenches into cash flows. So making sure we can find good operators is of paramount importance for us. This is a credit play, right? You have to have a solid tenant underneath you that's going to pay rent on day in and day out. That's what we're looking for. We are
Yeah.
less concerned with their business plans, and we're less concerned with how they're going to take over the universe. We're more concerned, are they going to pay their rent, and do they have the means and
Yeah.
the opportunity to get enough revenue through the door to make sure that our investors get their payback.
Hmm. How many clinics do you think we need in the next,
Whew.
it's we always float this idea, but it's like when it comes down to numbers, how many therapists, how many clinics? If MDMA goes live mid-year next year, it's just like you got to have the proper commercialization, distribution, the drug being manufactured. Like what do we how does that look in a year or 2 years from now when you think of how many therapists and clinics that we're eventually going to need?
I mean, and this is where I wish Cody was here. He's got all the stats from MAPS and some of these other things, but it's north of 10,000. Mental health is a critical problem, and even if you look at just like one diagnosis, right? PTSD and what goes on with our veterans and the amount of people just from the VA that need this. Not to mention the people who've experienced, sexual traumas and eating
Totally.
disorders that are PTSD driven.
It's
There's a lot
everywhere.
of people. It's everywhere. So you see all these stats about 10% of America's on antidepressants or some medicine or another. This can come in and disrupt a lot of those existing multi-billion-dollar businesses, that Pfizer and Moderna and all the other, giant pharma companies, Johnson and Johnson and Janssen, have been pushing pills out. This is an alternative to that, and those companies are Fortune 100 companies. So
Yeah.
we see a huge opportunity. I would say well north of 10,000. I think you're going to see clinics really start to expand very quickly. I think as
Yeah.
more treatments become available, as they get more educated on, and more insurers cover this, that's the other thing. This is so different than a lot of other industries that I've been a part of. Right? This is insurance backed. This is
Huh.
this is FDA approved
I know.
treatments. So
Think
you know,
about that.
it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's huge, and I mean a lot of the addressable market that I haven't really heard anybody say yet is occupational therapy, because I mean this stuff can be used for emergency room workers. I mean police officers, fire department. Like the addressable market is enormous
But backed by
Yeah,
for
I
insurance
agree,
for this
companies.
Anthony.
kind of
But
therapy.
Yep.
Correct.
back
Yes,
but back
insurance companies back occupational therapy. I mean that's part of the job.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I
for
mean
us, from a credit play,
that'll
right,
be backed.
is as
Yeah.
as much as this is about creating wellness and all that thing, Healing CREI is a real estate play.
Yeah.
We're a
Yeah.
real estate investment group, so we want to make sure our number one priority is to make sure our rents get paid. So as we go out and start raising capital, we're offering these people some level of assurance that Blue Cross Blue Shield is paying this
Yeah.
back. Right?
Yeah.
There is revenue
Yeah.
coming in and guaranteed, unlike other industries that are cash pay, right? A lot of parallels try to get drawn between the cannabis industry and this. This couldn't be further from cannabis. It's federally legal. It's not cash pay. Not only is it not cash pay, obviously you can use credit cards, but then beyond that, you have insurance companies reimbursing doctors for this treatment. So from a credit quality standpoint, we feel we're putting people in a really good investment opportunity to get a great yield, to have a secure asset. And, we're excited about that from the business sense as well. Obviously, it's wonderful to help people, and it's wonderful to pioneer into a new industry. And I think it
Yeah.
truly will change the world. And we'll look back in 10 years, 20 years, and, this will be one of the major breakthroughs in the country and the world.
I think you're right. I definitely think you're right. Well, when you paint the picture like you just did, you get a real idea that this space is going to be a lot bigger than the cannabis space will ever be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, first, I'm a good artist,
Yeah.
Chad, so like I'm great at drawing that picture. But beyond that, mental health is huge. I mean, there
You-
really isn't there's you can just talk about it from every angle of life, um, and I just think that cannabis has a tremendous space for itself. It certainly is a crossover between wellness and enjoyment, and kind of sits in various categories. And I am excited for the days when real research is done to see what cannabis can do on various things. There's too many anecdotal stories that have people have
Yeah.
improved their lives in material ways, and I'm excited. But to run things through phase one, phase two, phase three trials is billions of dollars. And until that capital
yeah.
comes into that space, it's always going to trail an industry like this, where literally we're already through phase three, two
Yeah.
phase three trials for MDMA. So the money that has been injected into this space already is staggering. They
I know.
wouldn't do that, as much as it is for the treatment of people. Businesses put things through phase three trials to generate income, to generate revenue. There is
Yeah.
a scope and a scale here that is unheard of, and it's going to get unlocked in a very short period of time.
Yeah. You got to have a business model in order to have access to that medicine, which is extremely important for this to have long-term sustainable growth. We talk about business. You're launching a 9-figure fundraise that's going to be more of a yield return versus an equity investment. You want to elaborate on the difference between the two and how this will work?
Yeah, so we're excited to kick off the fundraise. Again, with it being federally legal, We get to use large U.S. banks. It's very different than again some of the other industries I've been a part of. We get to use big four accounting firms. We get to use just normal industries to
Yeah.
really propel this. And as I started out as chairman of this, the team asked me to take over as CEO as we launch this new fundraise. So I've stepped into the role of CEO to really kick off this fundraise, which should start in the next few weeks. The investment opportunity is different than an equity investment, and what I mean by that is a lot of times you're investing in a business, and that business, while it may have some tangible items like desks and computers and things like that, businesses are usually based on an idea, then the execution, and then what the industry does around them. In theory, they have a very large opportunity for growth, right? You could invest $1 and get back $10 in a relatively short period of time in some industries, right? You look at all
Yeah.
the trades none of us ever made, right? The misses along the way that everyone loves
Yeah.
to talk about.
Yeah.
Those are typically equity plays. For real estate, it's very different. It's a yield play. And what I mean by that is you invest $1 and then you expect to get some percentage of that dollar back on a quarterly basis. So
Yeah.
it's required in a REIT to distribute 90% of the cash flow back into investors. So you're going to get a quarterly check. It's a dividend on a quarterly basis. That on top of any growth that occurs as we grow it, as the market cap grows of the business, as our assets under management improve. But the general investment here is in a very tangible item, right?
Yeah.
Physical real estate. So the likelihood of it going down to nothing is much less than an industry where you're betting on the growth and you're making an equity investment. With that comes you're probably not going to hit a 10x return on something like this. This is a quarterly distribution that's going to come, and hopefully it lasts in perpetuity. But that's the structure of this. If you sit down with your financial planner, you talk about how to allocate money, they're going to put it in fixed incomes and some of those things. This checks those boxes, right? This is a fixed income investment. This is designed to be more stable. This is designed to be more guaranteed. This is designed to have slow and steady growth over a long duration, unlike an equity investment or maybe some of the operators in the space who will inevitably raise capital. Those are more of the moonshot investments, right? This is a much more
Yeah.
safe traditional investment that my grandfather would make at the end of the day. He would invest
Yeah.
in real estate. He wouldn't have invested if I told him, we were launching a psychedelic clinic, that wouldn't be where he'd put his money. But talking about the real estate and then that there's reversionary use, meaning if something went wrong, you'd put a dentist in these offices. You'd put a, physician
Yeah.
in these offices. There's a lot of value in medical office space. I think
You're
that
in New
category
York.
has always performed well. Yeah.
You're in New York. Are you garnering attention, having conversations with people about this model?
Yeah, I mean, we're I'm always in fundraise mode, so it's a lot of conversations. I can get any door open. That's when you're in the right place at the right time. Not everyone's
Yeah.
going to invest, right? There's always reasons why people can say no for good, bad, whatever. The wind blew the wrong way that day. But what's interesting for me is if I make 10 phone calls, I get 10 meetings because this
Yeah.
industry is so captivating. So it's up to me and our team to make sure that the deal we put in front of people makes sense. But when you see the level of attention and the opportunity that's been put in front of us, that's what's really exciting. It's up to us to execute it, just like any other business. But if I go down my Rolodex and I take some long shot opportunities or call on some funds that always said no to me in various situations, I can get that meeting, and then it's up to me to close the deal, or up to the team to close the deal alongside.
Sir, you're making 10 calls and getting 10 meetings because the industry is so fascinating, which that's a that's a telling sign. What do you think is the most popular the response that you get most of the times when you call a lot of these people that are confirming a lot of meetings that have shown interest towards this space?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, fortunate for me, but unfortunate for the world, is every single person has someone who's had mental health problems. Every single person
Yeah.
has had someone who has been on one of these drugs that might work for a short period of time, but it never solved the problem. And again, on our
Yeah.
on our last talk, right, we talked about the band-aids, and a lot of these drugs are just band-aids. They're not
Yeah.
designed to treat people, not designed to treat the root problems. These drugs are designed to treat the root problem. So, as you can, my job is to get past the gatekeepers, right? It's to get past the first round of people and talk to the decision makers. And when I do, this is a very relatable item. So again, whether they write the check or not, it remains to be seen. But my job is to create an opportunity for them to understand who is the end customer, how does that end customer pay, how does that money matriculate back into this investment. And it all starts with the fact that everyone has had someone who has had some traumatic event in their
Yep.
life, whether it's a family member they lost, whether it was an accident, whether God forbid someone they loved got hurt, whatever it was a assault, who knows what. The world is not maybe what it was 50 years ago. And unfortunately, there's a lot more trauma. And this is designed to help treat trauma. So that's exciting for me to know that the ears are open, the opportunity is there, and then I got to get in and kick the door down and close the deal.
Yeah. Could be the greatest invention in the 21st century. I think that's how big this could be.
I don't think that's hyperbole. I think, as we look at, the opportunity ahead and, again, people, what will you pay for your mental health, right? At the end of the day, what would you pay to make sure that what sits on top of your body is in good shape, right? It's an unlimited thing. We all want to live longer. But we want to live a quality life, right? You don't want to live 100 years of depression and trauma. And, every time a door slams that you're nervous and you're hitting the ground. Like, that's what a lot of these people are going through, right? Loud noises. Can you imagine loud noises impacting your life? Like, you couldn't live in New York City. There's like 6 places on earth you could live.
No.
Right? It sucks.
Like somebody who's on suicidal watch, car, house, beach, whatever, villa, like anything you want in life. If you're on suicidal watch, you just want to live that day. And there's no price there's no price tag to that. And I think that's why it has, especially with the way where this world is going. And we've spoken to Wiz Buckley as well, as you're good friends with and work with. But yeah, it's like this is the most opportunistic, I think, industry that I've seen in quite some time, and badly needed at the most critical time, I think, right now in society. But listen, I always love learning on how we're going to scale this up and what the overall business infrastructure is going to look like as we get the right data. We look at FDA obviously approving MDMA, and then how does that work? But appreciate obviously the update, appreciate the feedback, and more importantly, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Shad. Thanks, Anthony. Really excited about the opportunity ahead, and look forward to being back on as we get this fundraise rolling.
Awesome.
Definitely. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Hey, everyone. So what'd you think of the interview? Did you like what we asked? Is there any information you want to learn more of? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you think. As usual, share this video with your network, smash that like button, and most importantly, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.